coverage. Compliments of Nick Underhill from NewOrleans.Football, which this conversation every week is brought to you by former LSU Tiger and current attorney here in Baton Rouge, Chris Perrette, as KP brings us our New Orleans Saints coverage every week with Nick Underhill. Nick, good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Saints 1-2 after the Sunday night loss to Green Bay. They are on the road at Detroit this week. There was a couple of positives, including Alvin Kamra again, as he was explosive. 52-yard touchdown run or screen pass that was very much a highlight reel run. But again, for him, from scrimmage, dominating. What did you make of the back who just got all the money?
Yeah, for a little while there, I felt like he was their whole entire offense. And in the first half, it felt like the plan was get the ball to Alvin and let him break 6 tackles on the way to a touchdown. They didn't have a whole lot going, but kind of the way Green Bay was playing them, it kind of led them to taking that short stuff and going to the run. And I think early in the game, you saw the Saints exploit that really, really well. In the first quarter, they only saw one run with 7 or more guys in the box. They were playing it a little bit lighter, sitting back and, trying to get the Saints to dink and dunk. And it's a little bit weird, considering the Saints are a dink and dunk team, but, that's just kind of how Green Bay plays. And Alvin, really took advantage of that early in the game. But, I think as far as non-quarterbacks go through 3 games, I think you could probably make the argument that he's playing as well as anybody in the NFL right now. And it's funny, and I think, we kind of talked about it this offseason when the contract was leading up. If he had bet on himself and hit the market, he could have got that true $15, $16 million per season. I know his deal now averages out to that, but if you look at it through the first 4 years, there's an average of $12.5 million through the first 4 years. And then the last year, the number is so big so that Alvin and, his agent can essentially advertise that he's the second highest paid running back in the NFL, but it's really a $12.5 million deal. So, if he had taken this the whole way and played like this, that money would have been there and it would have been real money. But, it's just weird to look at it. Like right now you're watching him play and it's like, wow, he's worth more than he's being paid. And the contract, the ink is barely dry on it. But, he's been outstanding so far.
Nick Underhill joining us from NewOrleans.Football. Make sure and subscribe. If you are looking for New Orleans Saints information, there's really only one spot, NewOrleans.Football. I love the podcast that is published every week. You can get that wherever you check out your podcast, NewOrleans.Football. There was a lot of criticism last week surrounding Drew Brees. This week, Brees throws 29 of 36, 288 yards, 3 scores, no interceptions. He was sacked 2 times. What did you make of the 40-year-old quarterback?
I thought he was a little bit better this week, and he was probably a little bit better than we made it out Tuesday morning, jumped on, and, the game was barely over. Didn't really have a chance to look at it. When you went back through the game against the Raiders, there were maybe 3 or 4 throws, and, I think 2 of them were 2 of the throws that we all probably looked at and thought, wow, like, what's going on with Drew? And one of them was a pass to Josh Hill over the middle, and if you watch that play again, Josh Hill stopped his route, didn't continue to the sideline, and there was a miscommunication there. And then there was another one on the sideline to Jared Cook. And if you look at it as Jared Cook's coming out of his break, or coming into his break, rather, he glances back at the pocket and slows down just a little bit, and it's just enough to let Jonathan Abrams get a line on it. He breaks up the pass, and if Cook had continued on, he probably would have cut off that angle, and the incompletion might still happen, but it's not as drastic looking. In this game, I thought there was still a little bit of reluctance to throw it on the field. There's a handful of plays that you go through, you can, you see they're there, but I think that's just the way Brees plays now. And, they mentioned after the game they were playing a lot of 2 safety shell. And I know that kind of, you're like, well, Patrick Mahomes, I'm watching him, and he's tearing apart 2 safety shell. But, like, Drew's not a strong-arm quarterback. You have to be a strong-arm quarterback to go down the field against, when there's 2 safeties back there. And really, this is the way they've been playing for a lot of years. And a lot of this conversation that everybody's having about this team, it feels a little bit intellectually dishonest or intellectually misinformed because you're not working with the actual evidence. Like 2017, Drew threw 14 passes against cover 2 that traveled 15 or more yards through the air. He connected on 5 of them. Doesn't work very well, so they go away from it even more. 2018, 3 of 5. Last year, 1 of 5. This year, 0 of 0. Yeah, there isn't that attempt yet, but if they continue on this rate, there's probably going to be 5 of them through the year, but this just isn't how they played. It isn't how they played for a while. And I think if we're going to frame the conversation about his demise and where it's coming from, it's not going to be told through the story of deep passes against 2 safety shell or deep passes whatsoever, because this just is not how they played. It's going to be the inaccuracies. And I think he was a little bit more accurate this week. There was a screen pass to Taysom Hill on third down that came in a little bit high. He had another pass over the middle where I thought he had happy feet, and it just didn't look in sync. But I think overall, the offense was a lot more cohesive this week. I don't know if it's, the cure-all and you leave this game and say everything's all good, but I do think if he played like this in week one, I don't think that we'd be having these same conversations right now.
So one more on the offense before we get to defense, because I agree with everything that you just said, and it's kind of led me to the take, and I want do you agree or not, like, because of how they've built, whether this is by design or not, because of how this offense has evolved over the last few years, you want to do all this short and intermediate stuff. Is the absence of Mike Thomas actually more impactful even than the absence of Drew Brees?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to have that conversation, but I do think that if you take Mike Thomas out, it changes the way you operate a little bit more than it does by putting Teddy Bridgewater, and you can run the offense the same way, and you're still looking at everything the same way. But I think if you take Mike out, it's, you got to go about things a lot differently, and I think it's been really, really out of sync. And I think maybe some of the players on offense aren't as good as we potentially thought they were. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been who I think who everybody thought he was going to be coming in. It's been a little bit slower, and it's been, frankly, a little bit surprising that he was slow to pick up the offense because he's played with such good players. Jared Cook isn't quite, he's not this superstar tight end. I think maybe he looks a little bit better with Mike Thomas out there and the coverage going his way, but when you're paying attention to him, maybe things don't look quite as good. But, it's just going back to that point about just everything being downfield. Even if you go back to, 2016, I mean, it's just crazy to me that we're looking at this and, the analysis has taken place is, Drew missed this guy 25 yards down the field. Well, they got rid of Brandon Cooks because he wasn't making those throws. And Brandon Cooks, he went nuts that season and started speaking out in the media because the passes weren't going down the field.
Yeah.
And the routes that he was running, they started changing. A lot of their play concepts, if you look at them now compared to 2014, 2015, a lot of this stuff had vertical routes. And those vertical routes have added curves to them that go over the middle of the field. They call them giant routes. And that's how they play now. They've moved away from this deep stuff forever. And again, this just is not, we're not going to look at it and be like, you know what? Drew can't throw it on the field anymore. He's finished. He hasn't thrown down the field in forever.
Yes.
It's just so annoying to hear these conversations. He doesn't have a pass at 18 air yards. Who cares? That isn't how he plays the game, and that's not how they're going to win. The margin of error is really, really small, and they aren't playing well enough consistently to be a contender the way they're going. But they can get it on track. And again, it's going to be the inaccurate passes. Drew not being able to hit. The 7-yard out, the 17-yard out's been gone for a very long time.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Mike Thomas is not only the best receiver in the NFL, but everything you want to do is his main strength. So what's the latest on him? Right. Just real quick, how close is he? Do we have any idea?
If you were looking real close to his Instagram yesterday, he posted a video of Allen Iverson talking about overcoming adversity, and underneath it, the caption said green light, but then within about 6 minutes, the words green light were erased and the video was posted.
Okay, well, that's one of my favorite things about modern sports, reading through players' Instagrams. All right, what about the defense, Nick? I believe, I could be a number or two off, but I believe it's 1 punt in the last 17 drives. I loved your question to Peyton after the game. You could tell that he kind of agreed with you. Why are they having so much trouble defending rollouts and play actions? What's going on with this Saints defense?
Yeah, the way the Raiders played them, I think there were a couple of moments in that game, and then you saw Green Bay take them. And one of them was the rollout. And it's crazy. If you watch the one the Raiders ran two, one at the goal line, and they scored on it. They failed to cover Waller. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson let him go. And then Green Bay ended up scoring on the same exact play, but this time Caden Ellis let the player go for a wide-open reception. So it looked like they saw that and saw how disorganized the defense was and lifted it. And then there was another play, it was so nondescript around the 50-yard line. The Raiders ran, one of those naked boots and they roll out and they got the player in the flat. And the way the Saints defended it, everybody had their hips turned the wrong way, but Carr just held the ball way too long, throws it, and they only get a 2-yard gain. And you could tell Green Bay saw that and they're like, this was a mess the way they defended it. Let's take that and use it. And they ran that same play 7 times on Sunday. And every time it was 7, 8, 9 yards, and it was just over and over and over, and the Saints couldn't make the adjustments. And this is the stuff that is shocking. Like, we talk about how this team was supposed to be one of the most talented in the NFL. Well, your talent is just completely undermined, and the continuity is completely undermined when you can't make the adjustments to these plays. And this is the stuff that we were talking about. Oh, well, this benefits the Saints because they're a veteran team. They've been together. They've played together forever. They can make these adjustments in the communication. And, you can have your switch on a rollout and not get, all out of sorts. But they're playing like a team that doesn't know what they're doing. And
yeah.
It's quite shocking to watch it, really. I mean, they should be a whole lot better. And I think a whole lot of stuff going on defense is a lot more confusing than the offense. Cam Jordan having 6 pressures through 3 games is not something you would expect to see. Trey Hendrickson should not be your most productive defensive lineman. Marshawn Lattimore, he's not showing up unless he's playing, a guy that he has a grudge match against, which is crazy. You're watching him lose money really in real time in a year where he should be getting an extension. And
it's the same thing we talked about, locking in against the guys that aren't, the superstars. It's like the exact same thing that we thought was his main goal.
Yeah, look, I think he'll be really good this week against Kenny Golladay because he's heard of him. It's crazy that you have to look at it like that. Like they made this Lazar guy look like the best receiver in the NFL, and he had 400 yards last year. But there's a cover 3, and Marshawn's just not looking at him. He's double covering a guy going up the seam instead of covering the sideline. Or, there's a cover 4 play, and he lets him go for a 48-yard gain. It's just. This is stuff that can't be happening. He needs to be more focused and locked in. Janoris Jenkins, his coverage is really good, but then he ends up having this, penalty every single game. And it's just these little things keep happening over and over. And, they can clean it up and get better. But, I think you look at it and you're like, why is this? It should not be happening like this because the team they have, the continuity, the coaches have been there forever. They should be able to do a lot of this stuff without even talking. And, they just aren't, and it's a little bit frustrating to watch, really.
Here, Nick, last one. I got less than a minute left. Just real quick, what do you do with Taysom Hill?
I keep doing the Taysom Hill stuff with him. He gives you more to prepare for. I think it makes everything harder for the other team, and it's horrible to lose a game because of your quarterback who you don't really need to have on the field, but. I still think that he's a unique guy. I think a lot of the stuff they do with him works. I just think that whenever he makes a mistake, it's so magnified because there's a predisposition for people to be against who he is and what he's paid.
There you go, Nick Underhill at NewOrleans.Football. At Nick_Underhill on Twitter. Check out NewOrleans.Football. Go sign up. It's awesome if you're a Saints fan. It's my favorite site to read for the Saints. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Conversation every week with Nick Underhill, brought to you by former LSU Tiger and current attorney Chris Perrette. We'll close that hour 2 next.